Okay, so we're holding the middle of Siman Tzadik Aleph, Halacha Basar בחלב. We're still in Tzif Dalad. We'll probably touch a little bit on Tzif Hey. Siman Tzadik Aleph discusses the dynamics of contact between Basar בחלב on different levels. There could be contact between them simply by packaging them together. In other words, there's no heat involved, which we spoke about. Hadacha may be required. We spoke about all other forms of contact that involve heat, even though we did it a little bit in Taaruvot. What we'll do is review a little bit the dynamics of them, because there are different halachas depending on what's involved. You put something on top of something else, something next to each other, something that roasts or is baked in the oven at the same time. There's all kinds of issues that come up, whether it's the zeya, the vapors, whether it's the touching each other. Are they both hot? Is one cold? And if one is cold, the other one is hot. Who's the one that's hot is on the bottom, the one that's hot is on top. So we see that the dynamics make a difference because the consequences are simply different. And so it has to do with the physics of heat, of how heat travels, which we use the term piapua. The piapua, meaning that there is tam, which we're concerned about, the tam, the flavor, being transferred from that which is also to the one that's heter. Or if we're dealing with basar b'chalav, each one is a problem. They're both heter, but it's the combination of the two that can produce a problem to both. And there's going to be a difference, which we'll see a little bit more today, between lach and gush. Davar gush meaning a solid, lach meaning liquids.
You said it
right.
Based on modern physics
right.
today, if we were to come to contradict makes regarding the physics.
I don't think that would happen because you understood his question, right? I'll tell you why. There's a question. Good comment, in other words, or a question. There is a similar question regarding our siman here with kafela. Can the kafela contradict a Torah gavar? There is such a question.
How would it fail contradict a Torah gavar?
He would say, I feel the tam all over the chaticha.
So that's not a contradiction to Torah gavar.
No, he's being machmir. And we're saying it's only it's not a contradiction, but he's saying something different. We're saying it's only kedei klipa.
No, but I'm saying, I'll tell you why I'm saying it's not a contradiction. Because we say Tata Gavar,
sure.
and yours in which the bottom one was and the top one was, you say kedei.
That's right.
If we say Tata Gavar, then it's a form of saying which rules apply here. Those of a hot mixture, sure, or those of a cold mixture. When we say Tata Gavar, we're saying the rules of a cold mixture apply. So with respect to a kfela, there are two possibilities. Either we say we don't ask kfela, because with respect to a cold mixture, we have no question as to whether the taste spread or not. We don't have such a question. So we don't ask a kfela in order to decide that question. Or we say that disregarding the fact that we're treating this as a cold mixture, we're going to ask anyway. And the second kfela tells me that he tastes the taste.
Right.
Then I don't care what the temperature was. It has no longer to do with. I understand what I'm saying. Once the kfela tells me I can taste the taste of meat all over this milk.
Yes.
Then the heat.
But that's his opinion. Okay.
Then either I rely on the opinion of the kfela and I answer it, regardless of the temperature, or I don't rely on the opinion of the kfela and I don't answer or permit it.
But here we have
it's not a contradiction.
Yeah, but we have an established halacha that the most it could answer is kedei klipa, which means that we would not rely, even if the kafela says he wants to be machmir, we will not use somehow. Right.
But that's because we don't have a case of here.
Right. Somehow. Let's assume. I mean, he went ahead and tasted it anyway.
It's not a contradiction. And if a kafela tells me, I have a bottle of milk in front of me, and the kafela tells me, weird, this milk tastes of meat.
Yeah.
Do I throw it out? I have a bottle of milk, fresh bottle of milk.
Sure.
I just opened it. I pour a glass of milk for my.
Why should we suspect?
Exactly.
Right. Nothing ever happened.
This is the same case with Tata Gavar. If the bottom substance is cold, it's the same case.
Yeah. But the thing. Yeah.
So it's not a contradiction. If the kfela saying I taste meat all over this milk, it's not a contradiction in a halacha of a bottle of milk.
No, because there is another question: is why don't we do away with the machlekes of if tatar gavar or not, that the machlekes in the Gemara, which one is stronger, and just ask kafela.
Because again, with respect to which one is stronger,
let's just figure it out.
But the question of which one is stronger doesn't answer the food. The question which one is stronger tells me which halacha I apply. Kfela is a sub-department of the halacha of heat.
Kfela is also an alternative whenever I cannot determine any other way.
But only when I have heat.
Yes, when you have heat, yes.
So kfela is a sub-department of the department of heat.
Yeah.
Tata gavar is a criteria by which I determine whether or not heat applies in this mixture.
I thought under certain conditions you didn't require heat in any mixture.
Well, obviously, when something produces tam, yeah.
So what case?
Just with heat, right?
What case would you be thinking of?
He's talking about a case of bittul. So
but bittul is also when you have heat.
Well, you may not.
Where would you have it?
No, you don't have to have heat.
I can have cold pork
You don't have to.
in cold milk.
Yeah, you don't have to have heat.
So that's lach belach. We're talking not here about lach belach.
Yeah.
We're talking about lach belach.
No.
We're not talking about lach.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, that's true.
No, it's not true.
Yeah,
it's not true. You use the word.
You can
true.
You can
it's
determine.
Not true.
You can use a kapela in that situation as much as you use him in the other situation.
In what situation?
If you want to know if there's tam or not.
So you're telling me if the kapela tells me that the bottle of milk has a taste of meat, I throw it?
No. I didn't ask him.
Oh,
don't volunteer information.
But he told you so.
Yeah.
So suddenly he just disqualified because you didn't ask him. You have to ask him. On the contrary,
yeah.
He's Mesiach Lefi
Tumor.
It's the most reliable. Once you ask him, that's when you get a problem.
Yeah. But the question is, how would it taste? Why should it taste like meat?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So unless there's heat involved, I don't have a question.
Yeah. Well,
the heat is what makes it travel.
In the case in your case, yes, yeah. But there are cases where there's not necessarily heat. I mean, there may be a mixture, like he says. Elma, you're talking about yovish.
Yeah.
And the only way you can have the tam, the only way you can have the tam go from one to the other is through roitev.
Yavish belach.
Yavish belach, yeah. All right, but anyway, another topic. So here we have the various scenarios of involving heat so far.
No, but wait a second, but your answer wasn't an answer to my question. Because regardless
going back to your question.
Regardless, kfela is a halacha.
Going back to your question.
Excuse me, just a second.
Yeah,
because kfela is a halacha.
Sure.
I have a halacha that says, if I'm in doubt as to whether a mixture is permitted or not, then, according to the mechaber, I ask a kfela.
Right.
Okay, but here...
Right, with the physics,
With the physics, it's not a question of...
It's not a question because
that's what my
once
question was.
Once the halacha is established, right, once the halacha is established, it is not, unless there was a suffix to begin with, once we've made a determination based on whatever criteria they used, the halacha remains the halacha.
So we're not going to reverse it and suddenly say...
We're not going to reverse it.
Tatar gavar, it's the opposite.
No, it's not tatar. As we're going to see if we have time, there is a Chazon Ish that explains that in the end, when it comes to tatar gavar, regarding that Aruch HaShulchan that we mentioned yesterday about quantities, doesn't it make a difference quantities? Why tatar gavar? Ultimately, it's if we can see that the quantity at the bottom, which is cold, is so large that it actually cools off the heat on top, right? Or the other way around, the cold on top is so much that it cools the heat at the bottom to the extent that which was hot is no longer yatsa ledes boy, he says. Then we ignore the din of tatar gavar. So the Chazon Ish really says, the bottom line, it all involves temperature.
So
that's what he says. No? Similar. Yeah, similar to the Aruch HaShulchan, but from a different angle. It says the bottom line, it all involves temperature. Forget about quantities, if we could see what this does to this, he goes a little bit further than the Aruch HaShulchan by saying, let's see exactly if it happens or not. And we'll talk about it. I'm going to review that point.
Because he says it involves temperature.
Yes.
Whenever we speak about a mixture of cold and hot,
yes.
What are the temperatures which one thing is
classified? Yatsa ledes boy.
Yatsa ledes.
Yeah, good question. The Chochmas Adam says we're talking about yatsa ledes boy. Right. Okay, but anyway, let's go on and review just a couple of the nekudas that we spoke about last time, involving some halachas that appear in Hilchos Taaruvot. One of the nekudas that you raised was gabe munochim zeh etzel zeh. So I have to go back to Hilchos Taaruvot and refresh my memory too, the various shittas over there. Because we're talking about various kinds of situations. In dealing with two pieces of meat, one is isser and one is heter, or here, when one is basar and one is chalav, and they're next to each other, there's no tato govar, right? There's no one on top of the other. The question was raised, next to each other, how is that din any different? There's a Ramon that in Siman Kuf Hey, that when the two of them are next to each other, the two of them are hot, miklir rishoin, right? So that in the case of Yisur Beheter, the heter is asr. In the case of Basar B'chalav, they're both asr. In the event that one is cold and one is hot, the one that is, if the heter is the one that's cold, you need a klipa. That was the Ramah. And the question is, what is exactly happening with side by side versus one on top of the other? So apparently, they explained, the Meforshim, the Poiskim explained, I think the Aruch HaShulchan also gets into it a little bit, that by Tatog there's actual weight. By side, they're not really pressing against each other that much. Okay, if that's the case, then why is that also completely? Now, over there, they're also because they're both hot. Not that one of them is cold and one of them is hot. But wait a minute. Here, we're saying even if one is cold, by Tatogova, the din is a little bit different. That one is cold and the bottom one is hot, the cold becomes asur. Over there, it requires both of them to be hot for the heter to be asur. But still, the question was not how it's different than Tatogova, but how is it different than Sli. That was a problem. That's where there was a little bit of a question. What's unique about the din of Zeh Munach El Yad Zeh? So you were right. The Ramah in saying both of them are asur is based on his own shita that we're dealing with the fact that we're not beking between shaman and kochush. Yeah, otherwise it doesn't really make sense. I knew you were right. I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, that's always a good
yeah. I wanted to double check. I mean, why? Otherwise, it's hard to understand. By tzli, it's kedei netila, and by tzli we have a din of pitum, which we're going to review a little bit now. That it can make a difference between kochush and shaman. Zeh munach etzel zeh is going to be any worse than tzli. But tzli, it's only kedei netila me'ikar adin. And some say there's never a din of pitum, by the way. There are some Rishonim that say there's no such a thing as a pitum.
By tzli?
Yeah, by anything. There's no such a thing as pitum, mefatem. So, there the ikar din is netila because of the heat. That is more than a klipa. So it's a kedei netila. So by zeh, next to each other, if anything, it's not so strong. Comes along Ilan and reminds us, yeah, but that's based on the fact that the Ramah is machmer, because we're not boki bin kochosh l'shaman. If one of them is shaman, we say the din of pitum. If we say the din of pitum, it's mefapea bekuloi, not just bekdei netila. And that's when both are hot, the heter is also. Okay. Then there was another question. Another question which I also double checked and looked up, because it's tricky. I mean, there's so many little details here, and everybody holds different things. It's incredible, Halacha would be nice if it would just be black and white. This is it, or this is it. No. There's sometimes various poskim that hold different things. And Pitum is an example. The Mechaber brings down the din of Pitum, and so do some poskim. I mean, there are some that go along with that shita. That when do we say Kedei Netila by Tzli when the Isser is Kochush? When the Isser is Shomen, it's Mefapea Bekuloi. That's just the physics, they call it the physics of something fatty being answering the whole thing. Okay. Comes along the Mechaber and he says, I got a chiddush for you. We also hold that even if the Isser, Machmas Atzmoy, is not Asor, but not Shomen, but the Heter is Shomen. The Heter is the one that's fat. Guess what? Well, because the Heter is fat, somehow the fat in the heter will go into the iser, and the iser will be able to somehow be mefatim or aser the whole heter. Wow, big chiddush. Okay, not necessarily does everybody agree with it, but there is a question in the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef has a question that he does not answer, and I had not recalled this Beis Yosef, so it's good to always make chazara, review the halachas, because on the following nekuda, which we spoke about last time, we weren't very, very 100% sure, but we thought we knew it. And we were not wrong, but the question is why. And the scenario is as follows. Okay, let's say the Isser, the treif meat, is not Osir Machmas Atzmoi. How do you have something which is treif, not Osir Machmas Atzmoi? It used to be a kosher piece of meat that once upon a time it became Osir. It was Boileya and Isser. So it has an Isser Balua. Now, we've learned that Isser Balua is different than Isser Machmas Atzmoi in various scenarios. And Isser by Tatoa Govar, most poskim are not going to say that the Isser Balua will come out. Unless it's an Isser Machmas Atzmoi, there's not enough heat. When is an Isser Balua not a question? When you're being mevashel something, the tam travels everywhere. And that's, especially if you say, I mean, it remains asur even if you took it out and you put it again in another pot, it's always going to asur. Bishul causes the tam to travel everywhere. And it's interesting that we will see later on in Basar B'cholov, and you remember this probably from last time, that it's going to make a difference if you close the pot or did not close the pot, did everything get mixed up or not.
Stir the pot.
That's going to be fun, huh?
Yeah, stir.
Did you steer it? Did you not steer it?
You have a lot of people.
Yeah, for that.
How
Oh,
come
yeah.
It's not a battle, it's still
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. And so Bishul produces a mixture of everything, and it could be good when things get mixed up, because then you have a chance to be mevatalet, as opposed to not. We will see that later. In any event, Bishul is a means by which everything can get mixed up. Not so by roasting, not so by tatogover all the time, especially if we're dealing with an Isser Balua. Isser Balua requires roitev. It requires liquid to bring out the Isser Balua. Okay? Now, all right. So what happens, we said, if it's an Isser Balua, not an Isser Machmas Asmoi, and the Isser Balua is not Shomen here. Okay? Or even if it is Shomen, makes no difference. But let's say it's not Shomen, it's Kochush. But the heter, where it's Balua, is Shomen. Okay? Just like we said before, the heter, the Shomen can be Mefatim, the Isser. What happens if here, what we have here, is one piece of heter that has an Isser Balua in it. Okay? There's another heter next to it. But the heter that has the Isser Balua is Shomen. It in itself is Shomen. We don't even need the other heter being Shomen. It in itself, where the Isser is Balua, is Shomen. The Beis Yosef, I think, remains in Akasha. He doesn't know why it should be any different, but it is different. We said that in that case, we don't apply the halacha of pitum. Pitum will only work if the Isser is an Isser machmas atzmo. It's a real Isser. It's a piece of nevela. And then you have a heter next to it that may be shaman. Kol shekain, if the Isser is shaman, of course. But the heter, even if the heter is shaman, the heter is shaman, Shuman will go to the Isser and it will come back. But if the heter has an Isser Balua, even if the heter itself, the one that has an Isser Balua is shaman, it cannot take the Isser Balua and mefate bekuloi. Why not? That was the question that we had. I mean, we thought we knew the halacha, and that is the halacha, pretty much. But what is the difference? Why should there be any difference? Poshup Shat, when an Isser is an Isser Machmas Atzmoi, it does damage, Kedei Netila. It is able to go by itself as far as Kedei Netila. Comes along the pitum of the heter, shaman, and is able to cause that Netila to travel further. That's the way it works. In other words, that's the way the pitum works. However, when the Isser is Balua, and it's not an Isser Machmas Atzmoi, the Shuman of the heter, of that Chaticha, does not have the capability of taking that which is Balua all the way to the other Isser, to Asur Bekuloi. It just can't do it. Now, the way the Pitum works is only by an Isser Machmas Atzmoi. That is where he can do more damage. But when the Isser is only an Isser Balua, it's not capable of doing that. There are other Hesberim. I looked it up in Hilchos Taaruvot. There are other explanations. The Chazon Ish, for example, brings a very interesting explanation. He says that when you have an Isur Machmas Atzmoi, the Pitum begins to affect the Isur right away, and it is Mavliya. Let me see if I remember how he says it. The Pitum in the Heter, he says like this, takes the Isur, Machmas Atzmoi, and does not allow it to just be Nivla in a Mokom Mugbal, he says, in a very limited spot. The nature of the Shuman is that it is able to take the Isur and make it go way beyond a Mokom Mugbal, he says. So that's Pitum that is happening at the very early stages. In other words, in the very, very beginning. It is being mefatim the Isser and taking it not to just a set point, but beyond that point. It says, but by an Isser Balua, that Isser Balua has already, it's established itself already. It found a spot in that heter, in a piece of heter. So it's already sitting somewhere. To uproot it from where it already landed once, that the Pitum cannot do. In other words, the Pitum, when in the very early stages, as it begins to work on the Isser, it is able to make it go far. But if the Isser has already traveled somewhere, as in the piece of heter, and has been absorbed in a Mokum Mugbal already, in a limited spot in that heter, now to take the Pitum and try to draw it out from that location and uproot it or take it far, it won't do it. That's the way he explained it. Interesting, yeah.
In your example,
with the Isur Balua?
With the case that you discussed, yes.
Even the heter, even the piece that has the Isur Balua in it, that's the Chiddush. Any heter.
But that is the case of the Osir cannot be Asr more than the Isser.
Similar, yeah.
Because the Isur Balua would have to be fatty in order for the fattiness to have a chance of having some effect.
Right. Yeah, it's similar to that cloud that we spoke about. How far can it go? It can only go so far.
No, that's not a question of distance. It's a question of, do we take the property of the heter and base the ability of the Isser on the property of the heter, if the Isser itself doesn't have that property?
Yeah, but the question was, in the other case it did work.
So,
yeah.
Which other case?
In the case of Isur Machmas Atzmoi
No, Isur Machmas Atzmoi, the Isser itself is fatty.
No, but it wasn't. The heter was fatty.
Yeah, but here you're trying to assert a third party heter. The heter that has the Isur Balua is the fatty party here. Yeah?
It can, yeah. Even if
it's not fatty.
Right.
And now you're trying to assert a third party that's not fatty.
Right.
So that's already one step more removed. You would need to have even more power to accomplish that.
Right.
So that would be the
that's what the Magen Avraham says. Very simple, that an Isur Balua does not have that ability to be mefater. It's just simply because of that, because of its position. In other words, it's farther removed, I guess you could say. Yeah. Permigodim also says that. And he's Mekel b'Mokom Hefsed, that in such a case where it was fatty, but it was an Isur Balua, the Mokom Hefsed you can call. Yeah.
Because if you take the heter that has the Isur Balua as the fatty party,
yeah,
then its fat would only be sufficient to assert the heter itself.
Yeah. So what do you want to say? Yeah.
Now, so if I have a piece that was asserted because of its fattiness,
right?
And there was a heter that was next to an Isser, and that heter was fatty. Now the fat of the heter traveled to the Isser,
right?
Returned to the heter, and now assers the heter.
Right.
Would this piece that became asser, if it now sits to a heter, asser that heter over again?
Then it's an Isur Balua.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the same. I think I remember seeing that too. It cannot go back again
and asser another piece. Right. Unless you say now is actually Hanan Bishar Isur and Isur Balua can both coexist peacefully. Can you distinguish between a case of Hanan Bishar Isur and Isur Balua, or do you have to make up your mind if you're going to go with Isur Balua versus Hanan?
No, they're two separate dinim altogether. So you cannot hold Hanan and you still have an Isur Balua.
No, I meant the other way around.
Now what?
If I hold Hanan Bishar Isurim,
right,
then will I have a case that is distinct from Hanan Bishar Isurim than Isur Balua?
Yes, because even though you're holding it's Hanan, it's only legabe bitol. The din of Hanan applies to how much is required to be mevatalet. That's all, right? You need shishi keneged the entire chaticha now.
Right.
It's still a nisr balua. It's not a nisr machmasatzmoy. The chemistry behind it is still different than being an isr machmas atzmoy.
A piece of Hanan, but by Basar B'chalav, the Hanan is an Atzmoy.
Yeah, but that's real basar b'chalav. In other words, we treat it
but
as
whoever holds Hanan b'shar Isurim,
right.
at least treat shar Isurim, at least according to the chapter Rabbanan,
Right.
as having the same quality as a Basar B'chalav Hanan.
Yeah, but this,
Undertakes to do that.
but
That's
legabe
what's called
bitol,
Hanan.
it's legabe bitol, only legabe bitol, not legabe any other thing. Yeah. All right. Anyway, what I did also see, I don't recall the details now, is that by Isure de Rabbanan we would be more mekel than by Isur de Raisa. Legabe the dinim of pitum, legabe various dinim here been discussing. If it would be an Isur de Rabbanan, it would be more mekel. I don't recall all the various scenarios, but I just remember seeing that somebody mentioned that this is only legabe Isur de Raisa, not legabe Isur de Rabbanan. Where we are machmir. Sometimes when we say, like the Ramos says that we're not bekiyim, I think that was one example. Like Rabbi Ramos, halacha or psak, that we're not bekiyim. Yeah, but what if it's an isur d'Rabbanan? We're not so machmir. I think that was one example. Okay, let's quickly go to the Aruch HaShulchan. Because it relates to Hilchos Shabbos, Siman Shin Yud Ches. An important Siman in Hilchos Shabbos. Yeah, Bishul. Yeah. We spoke about Tator Govar. So the dynamics of Tator Govar was that the one is sitting at the bottom is stronger than the one that's coming on top. For whatever reason, that's just a fact. If that's the case, what happens if you have a lot of cold water, or a lot of cold milk, in this case of Basar B'chalav, coming down on a piece of hot meat? Will the hot meat become completely asr? Will the milk become completely asr? Or in other words, without shishim?
Are we talking about meat and milk, or no, we're talking...
I'm going to relate it to Hilchos Shabbos. Okay. I'm just going back. Moshe came.
Okay.
I'm going back to the din of Tator Govar. So, what we said was that apparently from the Gemara it's not mashma that it makes a difference of quantities, of whether the one in the bottom is smaller than the one that's on top. It's not mashma that there should be a difference. Even though there is a Gemara in Shabbos, and there's a Tosis on it, that it apparently does make a difference. And that's where the Aruch HaShulchan is bringing a raya to himself, that there should be, therefore, a difference in the din of Tator Govar too, because there's another makor that it distinguishes between quantities. And that's the sugya that has to do with ambati, which is what we discussed in Hilchos Shabbos. But before we get to that halacha, an important point is that in Tator Govar, when you have liquids, I should say, without solids for a moment, what happens with liquids, or even a liquid with a solid, is that the liquid in itself, the nature of the liquid, of the roitiv, is to cause bishul. Whenever you have liquid, you have a real mixture. Whenever you have solids, you don't have a mixture. You have contact, you have heat perhaps, whether heat in the bottom, cold in the top, or both heat. You don't really have that much going on. That's why it's kedei klipa or kedei netila. For the whole thing to be aser, right, it would have to involve, or at least sometimes we see that what causes the whole thing to become aser is because there's some liquid involved, right? The liquid is what causes the bishul. As opposed to two solids, you don't necessarily have bishul. As an example of the Ramah, where one is next to the other. There's no roitev, so they don't become aser.
The initial, if I understand it, whenever you have solids without any liquid, it's in the category of Islamic category.
Exactly.
It always implies
liquid, right? Yeah. Now, nevertheless, with Tator Govar, it makes no difference. We said the one that's in the bottom, being the hot one, can make anything on top of it become aser because of the nature of Tator Govar. There can be, however, perhaps a kula involving Tator Govar with liquid. That if you have lots of liquid, the liquid would extinguish the one that's in the bottom. I mean, why not? I mean, if it's liquid, maybe it will envelop it completely and extinguish the heat in the bottom. Or the other way around. When you have lach belach, which was another question that we raised, would it be any different than a lach and yovish, or a lach and a solid? And that's the question of Hilchos Shabbos. Hilchos Shabbos, even though you have lach and yovish in Hilchos Shabbos too, you also have, the main question there, the main discussion there concerns lach belach, where you have an ambati, a bath, and I extend that question, or even though the Mechaber does also get into it a little bit, to a cup of tea. Okay? You've just drank a cup of tea, and you have a little bit of cold tea left in the bottom. Yeah, can you add hot water from the irui? I mean, any water coming down from the percolator would be irui. And irui is, according to some poskim, it's also machlokes. Remember, in Hilchos Aruch, we went through what irui is. Is irui like a kli rishon? Is irui mevashel kedei klipa, like we hold, right? Or is irui like a kli sheni? In other words, irui is not any different than a kli sheni. There's that shita too. All three shitas. We're machmer, in Hilchos Shabbos, especially on irui. And therefore, you don't want to have things that are mikali habishul, things that cook very easily, in the, like a tea bag, in your cup. Now, what if the hot water already landed, nifsaka kiluach in a sense, right? Yeah. It already landed in the glass, and now you put the tea bag. It's but it's kali abishul. Because it's kali abishul, we don't do it.
And Aruch HaShulchan says, well, don't kid yourself. As long as the water changes its color, that's kol.
That's right. Yeah, even though between me and you, it could change the color even in kli shlishi, and very few people are machmer in kli shlishi. Because the color in itself is not what? The what? Yeah, what about him? Yeah.
I think he's raised him.
What he holds?
I actually looked up, I don't know what he holds. I looked up in the Halacha.
Right.
It's his son.
Uh-huh.
So his son says not to on Shabbos.
Not even in the kli shlishi?
He doesn't speak about it.
He doesn't see, yeah.
Not to use tea bags on Shabbos, but he says that those who shouldn't be mochiach because there are poskim.
Right. I tell people to use either essence or nest tea, which is the powder tea. I don't know why people don't use nest tea.
It doesn't taste good.
It doesn't taste the same. Maybe. Yeah, just prepare the essence before Shabbat. Or if you have no choice, you can use a kli shlishi. Yes, exactly. It's not going to be a vashal. That's it.
But it also doesn't.
We hold kli sheni is not mevashal, but here's. But it's kalei abishul, things that are kalei abishul that can easily cook, right? We don't put even in the kli sheni. So that's the question. By the time you get your soup, can you add croutons to it? Yeah, by the time you get your soup in the bowl, it's a kli shlishi probably, right? So even though we're going to be machmir on that there is afiyah, that there is bishul after afiyah, the croutons were baked. Because no bishul achar bishul, but maybe bishul achar afiyah. So, yeah, no, there are shitas that but we're machmer in that. We're not going to do it in a kli rishon, for sure not. But in a kli sheni, we're not machmer. So this, by the time you get it in your bowl, it's probably a kli shlishi. It depends. It depends what you do with what you hold of the ladle. If it's on top of the fire or not. What? No, that you don't have to worry about so much because it's right away. There are those who say that you should be careful not to put hot water into a glass that may still have some droplets.
And wouldn't that be a question on Baki?
Yeah. Similar. Some
droplets.
Yeah.
But I don't know anyone who permits it.
That's the question of whether there's bishul achar bishul by lach belach. By lach, I should say.
So we pass there is.
Yeah. So we're machmer. Yeah. So we're machmer. But you always have the shita, the Rambam, that there isn't, right?
Because it
was already cooked.
It's actually a quality.
It was already cooked. Yeah. It's already cooked. It's cooked like once. You can't cook it again, even if it's cold. Anyway, by the way, that's one halacha in Hilchos Shabbos where the Sfardim are more machmir than the Ashkenazim. There's several. That the Ramah holds that if the water is still warm in the tea, you can add hot boiling water to it. By Sfardim, warm is not enough. If it's nitztanen even a little bit, it's no longer yatzer ledes, you can't add. That is why you will find that some poskim, even though it's not clear in the Mechaber, everybody wants to point at the Mechaber, he says that, but I hold he doesn't say that. If your cholent is drying up, can you add hot water from the percolator? We're meko. Because as long as it's going directly, even though according to some you can take it in a cup too, But as long as it's going directly, you take the percolator close to your crock pot, or you take the crock pot and you don't put it down close to the percolator, two people, the other one opens the pot, to add a little bit of hot boiling water into the cholent, and you put it back into the heat element, it's okay. This is hot, boiling, cooked. This is hot, boiling, cooked. No problem. But Rabbi Yosef wants to say, and others also want to say, that it's mashma from the Mesilas and the Mechaber that he holds in halacha of meicham. He says, this is the lashon. Whoever takes hot water from the meicham means a tea kettle that was behatmona. It's not sitting in the fire. It was put away Shabbos, covered up, so you can have extra hot water to use on Shabbos, and uses that hot water to put into the chamin. He says it's no good. You're not allowed to do it because maybe the waters in the meicham are not yatzer ledis boy. Shepa'amim it's not. That's the main issue. So I told a lot of Rabbanim, the smart Rabbanim, why are you being machmir here with the cholent? We're not using a meicham behatmoner. We're using a percolator that is always yatzer ledis boy. Even more than yatzer ledis. So why compare that to this? These are completely two different kinds of situations. That does not prove this. I don't know. They have no answer. You just don't know. Oh, it's the same. It's not the same. There's no reason why you should be machmer. If it's for sure yatzer ledis boy. If it's not, I understand. You understand my question, my point,
Yes, I understand your point, but the Mechaber doesn't say, don't use the water from the meicham if it is less than yours.
It may be, less.
He says, don't use it because it might be.
Exactly.
Yes.
You're right, he's concerned about it, so therefore don't use it. But we don't have that concern with the percolator.
In our urns,
right.
The water doesn't become less than this.
Of course not.
So you don't have that.
You don't have, So I don't understand, why, the Mechaber would agree that this is perfectly okay. His only concern was with the meichem that was bayat mana, that it may not be yatzer ledis boy. All right.
Maybe they don't want to complicate matters.
Well,
there is such a thing.
Yeah, all right. Anyway.
I mean, halacha. We do have halachot sometimes today. We don't want to.
Right. So anyway, so let's go back to Hilchos Shabbos, the Gabe de Ambati situation, and the Aruch HaShulchan. So the Aruch HaShulchan has a good point. He says it's understood from the Tosfos there in Masechet Shabbos that quantities can make a difference, because the only concern in the Gemara was putting soinen into chamin by putting in cold into the hot bath, that the hot bath will heat up the cold water that you're adding. That's only because the minhag is to put the lesser into the larger. So the lesser is the cold, into the larger the heat, and the bati is very, very hot water. So it's going to heat up the little bit of cold water that you add to it. But you can, he says, the Gemara says, add chamin to tzoinen, because again, we're adding the lesser into the larger, right? So you're adding chamin into tzoinen, and you wouldn't be able to do it if it would be a problem of kedei klipa, right? Bishul kedei klipa on Shabbos is a problem too. So even though the chamim is on top and the bottom is soinen, and in tatol gover we say that produces a klipa, that's not the issue. In other words, it wouldn't be mutter. So why do the Gemara say you can do that? You can add the cham, right? Because it's talking about that the lesser one is going into the greater one. So you're talking about a lot of soinen sitting in the bottom. When you have a lot of tzoinen water in the ambati, right? Or you have cold water into the cup and you're adding hot boiling water to heat it up, as long as you have more cold water, you for sure don't have a problem. If you have a little bit of cold tea left and you can add all this bunch of water, hot boiling water through Iroi, I will tell you don't do it. Right? It's kli Iroi, like a kli rishon. If you have half a glass with cold tea, cooled off tea, and you want to add to the top with hot boiling water from the urn, no problem, right? But if you have a little bit left, then that would be a problem, because it's mashma, the Aruch HaShulchan says to Nagemora that it's the lesser into the larger one. Well, if the larger one is something at the bottom, the hot won't affect it. On the contrary, the cold will cool off the hot, or the other way around. When you have cold coming into the hot, you want to cool it off a little bit. Okay, you want to be careful not to just add a drop of lemon juice, into your tea, the very, very hot tea. Unless it's already a klisheni, then it's not so much of a problem. But if it would be a clear rishon, that it's not on the eish, you can't do it on the eish. You can't add anything when something's on the fire, right? But you removed it, and you want to add a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of cold into the hot. You're going to be heating up the little bit of cold.
Yes, and the cup when you deal with.
Okay, so good question. So that's a good question. So using essence is cold. So guess what? Some people leave the essence on the fire too on Shabbos. No, it's not mamish on the fire. That it should be a little bit warm, right? Because of that. But even if it's cold, it's okay.
You can add the essence to
because you're adding it usually to a kli sheni anyway.
And you're adding.
What you should not do, which I agree, is put the essence first. When it comes to coffee, Nescafe, not Turkish coffee, which you shouldn't use on Shabbat. When it comes to Nescafe, you add a little bit of Folgers coffee or Taster's Choice, whichever you prefer. They say, don't put it in first. Put in the hot water first into the glass, and then put in the Taster's Choice.
But freeze dry or since it's already been cooked.
Exactly. So since it's already been cooked, roasted, you don't have to be machmer. You can put in the sugar, you can put in the Taster's Choice first, and have the irui come down on it. But some people are machmer. Okay, fine. But
what about sweetness? Are they sweeteners?
Well, it always goes through the same process. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, but don't quote me. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what. So with the essence, first put the hot water into the glass. It's already a kli sheni, and then even if you add a little bit of essence into a kli sheni, it's not going to be mavash of the essence.
Now the problem.
It's going to warm it up a little bit, but it's okay. Yeah.
Now it's already been cooked. The
problem. Yeah, and it's already been cooked too.
That's why you would take essence. That's the whole point of using the essence.
No, I'm saying.
Why are we using essence?
The liquid has been cooked. I thought that was it.
So that's what I was going to say.
No, I was good. I thought maybe you're adding the Rambam Shita. Yeah.
The problem with the essence is the liquid.
Yeah. Right.
So that's why you wouldn't want to add hot water to the essence because of the liquid.
Right.
But so it depends really how moist it is.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. But it's already cooked anyway.
Let's say, for instance, if I have tea bags.
Okay, let's say you have a tea bag and you don't have essence.
No, I'm saying I have tea bags.
No. Here, excellent idea. Sometimes you run out of essence. You don't have essence, but you have the tea bags that were already cooked.
That's what I'm saying.
Before Shabbos, you already put them in.
That's what I'm saying.
Guess what? You can put them in right now on Shabbos.
And they're already dry.
Yes, they're already dry, but you can still use them. Yeah.
So
but it's not the same, Ilan, no? You're particular about.
It's already second generation tea. No, the truth is, in the old days when I was a kid at home with my parents, we used one tea bag for 24 hours. The whole family. It was like one tea bag went from one teacup to the next.
How many times could you use that?
No, forever. But we did.
I don't know about his tea bag. My father had institutional tea, the kind they used in pot of water.
And we left the tea bag in the
water.
As opposed to what we buy now.
No, what we buy now, we make one cup, maybe two.
Yeah.
They had institutional.
My parents used to leave the tea bags.
Oh, okay.
But it would just turn a little color.
Just turn a little bit of color, yeah.
This was real tea that was used before the week stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, just real quickly, so legabe these halachas by Tato Gover at least, there are some who are meko in all the situations. In other words, I think it's the Rashba, the Ran, that we say Tato Gover even to be meko.
What? Quick question. Still holding by Shabbos.
Yeah, go ahead.
What if a pit had been microwaved?
Okay.
Can it subsequently be added chilled? Let's say that's off the fire.
If it's considered cooked, yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is microwaving a potato considered cooked?
Yeah.
Is this bishul achar bishul? Or is microwaving a whole different process?
No. It's a form of heat that comes about. I mean, you can touch it, you can see it. It's very hot. It's considered cooked as long as it was 3 minutes or whatever it takes to cook a potato. It's perfectly fine. There's different ways of cooking. The question is, on Shabbos, are you allowed to do certain things like put it in the sun and make an omelet? That's something else.
Oh, that's a whole different story.
That's a whole different story. Is that, is a toildo or not a toildo, and so forth.
What's it called? Chama? No.
Yeah.
So that's permitted expressly.
So
not in something that was heated in the sun, but
exactly. So now you couldn't do it on top of the car.
Because the person might not know that.
In Nevada, for example.
No, but they did do it on the...
They did, yeah. Sometimes it's possible.
That's the Gemara brings that as an example on roofs.
Yeah.
But it's not a pot.
Yeah. So anyways, there is a machlokes, Rishonim, I believe, and even Achronim, as to how we hold with quantities. In other words, what would the Tur, who brings down this halacha, say if you have little turninim, if you had a lot of turninim, or if you had.
But I just read, if I may.
In other words, would it be mutter? Yes.
Step one step back.
Yeah.
But cooking of the sun, with an example for.
Yes.
Now, if I cook something in the heat of the sun, it's not called bishul.
Right.
I'm not over on bishul if I
right.
cook something.
It's not bishul. It's not right.
If I cook something in the heat of the sun and I throw it in a pot that was standing on the fire, is that called bishul acha bishul legabe Shabbos? Now that I've established that the heat of the sun is not called bishul.
No, because what's bishul? Bishul is like you began to say before. It's a transformation of something
raw to something edible.
That's all. So it would still
no matter
be
how it was
no matter how it was.
But if I baked the potato,
well, that's the question of afiyah.
So bishul achar afiyah, I also converted the potato into something edible for baking, and it heated up in the oven.
Right. That's
no less than it heats up in the sun or in the microwave.
Right.
So if the fact that it heated up and was transformed was such
that's the word. There's a machlokes on that. Yeah.
So according to those that say bishul achar afiyah is aser,
right.
So at least according to those, I might have a problem with microwaving it as well.
Yeah.
Because granted, it was heated up.
So I have an idea. After we finish Basar בחלב, maybe Melicha we do Melicha Shabbos, huh?
That is not bishul and is some other.
Yeah.
What was that?
No, he's saying that's assuming it's a different category, microwave.
Yeah, and bishul are different.
Yes. They are different. Yeah.
Microwaving is different. The question is it different?
Halachically, how is the category we recognize halacha?
I have a very, very nice, very interesting. Do you read Hebrew? I have a very nice article by Moshe Feinstein that discusses it.
That's fine.
So it discusses the microwave. That's his topic.
All right. Anyway, another time. Let's just finish up. The Chazon Ish, as we said before, holds like most Achronim or Rishonim that there's no difference between quantity so much as to who is greater. It's not established in the Gemara so much as to when it comes to the din of Tatar Gover, how much you have in the bottom, how much you have in the top. He says the ultimate goal is what we need to determine is heat. In other words, and if this heat has been cooled off, if this heat was able to overpower the cold and warm it up, it's all a question of looking at the situation and if it does or if it does not. And he says it's just that in the Mekor Hadin, the original machlokes was which one on the average is going to be stronger on the average, the bottom one or the one on top. So that was a question of Metzias on the average, but it could be that sometimes one is stronger than the other. The top one even, it could be. There's a big question in zoology, amongst zoologists. Who is stronger, the lion or the tiger? There's those who are pro-lion, and there's those who are pro-tiger. And there have been scenarios, there have been scenes where they put the two together, even though these two animals don't usually see each other. One is African, one is Asia, even though there's an Asian lion too. They usually don't confront each other. Now the lion usually has the upper hand. Usually, I say. Because of the way he is. I mean, the tiger is a different kind of animal. It's more aggressive, it's vicious, it's faster in some way. The bottom line is, it also depends on the size. If the tiger is a much bigger tiger, heavier tiger, it could sometimes defeat the lion. It depends if it catches it in the right spot. It depends if it's an ambush. It depends on how... there are various variables here on who may win the fight. And there have been situations where the tiger has won, but the majority, the lion wins. So here too, there are times where it could be the one on top will be stronger than the one on bottom. So that was the question. In the Machlokes Gemara, yes, but on the average, which one is stronger? The halacha is Tato Govar. The one at the bottom, as for the various reasons that we explained, usually comes out stronger. Either because it's there, or as we explained before, it's just the nature of the heat to rise, in case that the bottom one is the hot one. For whatever reason it is. It's just usually the one on the bottom has more koach than the one that's on top. Just wanted to add an additional point that I saw, and I think the Pesach Tshuva brings down over here. We discussed it in the halacha Taaruvot, and it's a very interesting halacha that can come up from time to time. Whether you're dealing with the Tagover, whether you're dealing with Taaruvot, all kinds of mixtures. does it have to be a certain amount of time where it becomes asur? What if it's sitting on it and I immediately removed it, right? Something tray fell into the kosher pot, but I immediately removed it.
At least it has to heat up to
No, but it was hot.
Oh, it was hot.
It was already hot. It was already hot. It fell in, boom, and I removed it. And in those cases, it also could make a difference. Yeah, obviously, what you're dealing with. If it emits something, it emits tam, or I don't mean, it could be. It may make a difference what we're talking about. Either way, there's a machlokes in that. Some say it's right away. Some say no. It would have to be a little bit of time. Obviously, you could be mitzar of this to other heterim too, if you ever had to. If it was mamash just a second, you may be able to mitzar of it. The reason I brought this up is because this will, B'ezrat Hashem, next week, when we discuss Melicha, Sif Hey, is a very, almost till the end of the Siman discusses Melicha, even though Melicha is in Samach Tes, in Ayin, Siman Samach Tes in Ayin, we will see a familiar machlokes, which, because in Taaruvot we got a little bit of everything, where we see that Melicha is something very powerful. And I'll just tell you right now, even though we'll review it later on, Melicha accomplishes two things. Salt can do two things. The salting something can be mavliya, the tam in this salty product into something else. That's one koach it has. Koach number two, it is able to draw out blood. Right? These are the two known things that salt, besides being a preservative, that's the koach of melach, because it produces a certain heat in dealing with heat. Here's another category of heat called meliach keroseach. Okay? So that it can do those things. So then we will see there's a big machlokes on when does it get this koach? Right away, as soon as you salt it, or after it has become roseach, because, in other words, after it has done its pe'ula. So by drawing out blood, how long does it take? At least 18 minutes. Right?
Well, that's the question. Does the salt work then maximum 18 minutes, or does it require 18 minutes before it becomes a...
Exactly. Then it becomes roseach, or does it become roseach right away as it's work? And how long does the roseach last? Well, obviously, if it was initially roseach, it will stop after it's finished doing its job. If it only becomes roseach after it has reached a point of whatever you call it resicha, it continues to be roseach until you remove the salt. So that's something that we will discuss later on. Because there's a difference of opinion that during the time, for example, that the melach is being used to extract blood, it's busy, right? It's busy taking out blood, so it's a little bit different, perhaps, than the case where it's not being used to draw out blood, because it's not busy. So therefore, we will see that it may make a difference what the salt is for. As the Mechaber says, there's two reasons to salt meat. One, to preserve it, to take it to the road. In other words, you're going to salt it a lot, and one, to draw out blood. Either way, Melicha can cause problems when you're dealing with Isur and Heter, Basar b'chalav, because of the nature. Same thing with Tzir, which we saw brine. It has heat. We spoke about kavush too. Not because of heat, but also because of the nature of what it does. It can absorb, or it can be mavli and maflit into something else. So all of these scenarios can produce different kinds of situations. Ultimately, obviously, whenever anything like this comes up, you may have to determine various things. If it's the kli that's hot, you have you concern yourself with, is it a ben yomer? Right? And therefore that concerns the pot and concerns the food that was in there. What happens to the food? Yes, hot it was. Yeah, but now I have to consider ben yomer versus not ben yomer. Maybe there was something pogum involved. That could present another issue. Well, I only stuck in the spoon halfways. So maybe I don't have to consider the whole spoon. See what I mean? And we will see that in Hilchos Basar b'chalav. So that's because by sticking something in is different than food being in a pot, because the whole food isn't in the pot, right? Tator govar, same thing. What if it's only touching one part of the pot? First of all, is there Tatar Gava Bekelim or not? It's also Machalik. We already covered that in Taaruvot. Is there Tatar Gava in Kelim? In other words, that the keli is hot, food is cold sitting on it. Or the keli is cold, the treif piece of meat is hot sitting. But that piece of meat is only touching one spot of the pot. Still, we're going to do Hagala to the whole pot. Well, we're going to do Hagala to just part of it. But it makes a difference. It could make, all of these things can make a difference because later on, if you used a spoon that was treif, how much treif was in the spoon? How much was absorbed? How much did you put it in? It only picked up a little bit. You see, if you know for sure. But the problem is sometimes we don't know. You just put in your mix, we don't know. So we're machmir. So we have all these variables, to consider in Hilchos Basar B'Chol, in Hilchos Beheter, and that's why it's complex, but it's fascinating. And that is the beauty of Limud Torah. It's deep, it's enriching, and of course there's a lot to learn from this, and it's never ending. And you get a mitzvah for it too. In other words, even though you may know the halacha in reviewing and seeing and trying to understand everything, Baruch Hashem, it's aruka. It's very, it's like the oceans. It's incredible. And so Yore Deah in itself, even though Orach Chaim in Hilchos Shabbos also has many, many details, Yore Deah can become very, very intense because of all kinds of complications that can occur in the kitchen, in Hashgacha, and so many unknowns, Ne'emonus of a goy. Then you have Eben Ezer with Gittin and Kiddushin. There's a psak halacha is not something easy, because you have to consider everything. People ask me, what's glat? Glat means in English smooth. But if it's not glat, it's not kosher? No, it is. But they only said it was kosher. Once upon a time, a poor man came with his only cow to the Rav, and the Rav had to consider all the kulas. If you would say it's not glat, it's treif, you know what that meant. So, psak halacha requires you to consider everything. Really, if you have, we spoke about hefsed meruba, letzorich mitzvah, letzorich seuda. These are all shilas that can come up. That even if you know the halacha is so and so, but there are times that it's different. And some people have a problem with that. How could the halacha be different in two kinds of situations? But elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim, as the rabbis tell us, that many, many times the halacha is this, because they're both mechaven to the emes. Elamai, sometimes we do like Beis Hillel, sometimes we do like Beis Shammai, depending on the situation. It's not that one is wrong necessarily. One has there's only one halacha, because you can't have two halachas. But there are situations where we apply that psak. So it's always going to be one halacha per case. The reason why we have some machlekesim in today is only because of minhagim and the golos and sfardim and ashkenazim and minor things. But in the main halachas, we follow, of course, the Rishon. And even though amongst them there's some chilukei deos, it's only because the Gemara itself sometimes there was no maskana, which means that it could be acceptable. It's not that one is wrong for sure. They can both be acceptable, but one has to be applied one at a time. So the question is, which halacha do we apply? That's all. Not that one is right and one is wrong.
Are there criteria by which you decide?
Yeah.
And can the affect which criteria which is?
And for that you need the tools that the Rishonim gave us, the Chachamim gave us, on how to deliberate and how to arrive as to the right halacha. Okay, we'll stop over here.